Okay, welcome all of you, my dear friends, students, parents, and all of you. So this is a very good evening. I think we have a guest who is there to teach us some motivational factors for the success for our life. And since you all know, we have been conducting webinars uh, twice in a month with different eminent speakers, interactive sessions. So this is one of a such kind. This is 6 C's of success. The wise Western institution, Western Ghats Institution for Social Excellence, as you all know, our vision is to develop global citizens with 21st century skills, and we wish they have to be on the driving seat of the world. So we are offering higher secondary courses, +1, +2, and degree courses, BA Sociology. So today, our chief guest is Mr. Ragesh Gudwani, sir. He's the chairman of School of Meaningful Experiences. The name itself is very fascinating and curious. So let me introduce Mr. Ragesh Gudwani, sir. He's the founder of School of Meaningful Experiences, an online edtech startup in Bangalore. He's also an adjunct faculty of communication at IIM Bangalore and IIM Jaipur. Dr. Gadwani coaches promising startups and senior managers in the industry, gives seminars and talks in corporate events and colleges, reads a story to his kids every night before they sleep, bicycles, does yoga, writes, earns a fraction of what he used to do, but lives a million times better. Ragesh research and teaching interests focus on how a charismatic leader builds a persuasive message to impact audiences. His fourth book titled Public Speaking Caldios was released as Business Expert Press USA in May 2017. His earlier book, What to Say and When to Shut Up, was published by Penguin Random House in November 2014 and translated in Marathi in 2017. Ragesh Gudwani recently launched his online course on edX and IIMBA called Effective Business Communication, designed for learners around the world. Besides this, Dr. Gudwani also has his own podcast called Plunge. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's Plunge, which is available on Spotify, Google, Apple Podcast app, or on his website. Prior to his plunge into academia, teaching and writing, Dr. Gadwani worked with companies like Wipro, Intel, and Qualcomm in various capacities ranging from engineering to business development. He also volunteers with Vishwa Society for Mental Health, an organization that offers free and confidential counseling. So, this is the guest for us today, students. So, we have to explore him within the 1.5 hours maximum. And I think you can go through his website, some.education. So you will get various programs for inculcating these 6 C's into our life. So I welcome Mr. Ragesh Gudwani for his presentation for half an hour. Then we'll be having an interactive session with him. Sir, you please.
Thank you, Mohammed. That's such a nice introduction. I'm so grateful that all of you gave me so much of respect and love and warmth. I don't get this kind of a love, respect, and warmth at my own home. Nobody listens to me there. So when I get an audience who is eager to listen to me, I'm so happy. And all of you are, I can see some faces. I'm so happy to see you. This technology brings us closer. And what I want to do is interact with my young learners and the future of my country, these bright young kids who will take us forward. I do these engagements because I feel that we all have to share our experiences, our stories, and see if we can learn from each other. And the message I have for all of you today in this 30 minutes, and then I would love to get your questions and interact with you, is that if you look at all of you who are young learners of the 21st century, I think you must understand what is the 21st century. And 21st century is unlike any other times that we have seen in this world. It is by far the world which has created events that none of us expected. COVID-19 is just one of them. The advances are unprecedented. The kind of explosions of population happening are unprecedented. The kind of problems and diseases coming are unprecedented. But despite all of that, all of us are excited. We are living our lives, but we need to pause and think about 21st century. And I'm going to explain 21st century to all of you using 5 numbers that you should know. And these 5 numbers are very critical for everybody in this room to understand, because we sometimes don't realize. All of us are studying in some class and some books, and we have to write exams, but we sometimes don't realize, why are we writing exams, what are we trying to achieve. So I'm going to connect all these dots so that you now start looking at your own careers and your own lives. And in that, I'll explain what we do at School of Meaningful Experiences. I'll share my uh, ideas, which are my limited ideas, and try and answer your questions. So here are 5 questions, not 5 questions, 5 numbers I want you to remember. And my first number is a very simple number. All of us will play a game. You can all chat with me. All right. So here's my first number, which I'm going to put on the chat window. Everyone look at the chat window. Here is the first number, 10 billion. What is 10 billion? Give me the answer. 10 billion. Chat with me on the answer. 10 billion. What is 10 billion? Come on, someone. Try it. It's not easy, not difficult. No, 10 billion. So Alif has increased the 10 billion to zeros. No, that's not what I want. I want an answer that what is 10 billion? Shashwat Sagar Singh says population. Very good, nice. Population. Jabina also says population. Money. Very nice. So population. Now it is the population. That's the right answer. My question is, by when? By when will the world population become 10 billion? Come on, think. 2021, no, no, Fatima, no, it can't be 2021. It means all of us should stop and just produce population. No, that won't happen. 2019 has happened, it won't happen. We are right now 7.5 billion. To reach 10 billion, we need to really produce a lot of babies. 2025, no, 50-50. Not 50-50. But I think the right answer is 2050. By 2050, the world will be very different. There will be a lot of people, and I want you to remember that the world will not shrink, it will expand. A lot of people on this planet. Okay, so that is number one. Remember this number one. Now here's my second number, and it comes on the screen. Not, no, no, I've privately replied to someone. Sorry. What is 100? 100. What is 100? Percent? No, no, not Uday. Percentage? No, not marks, not uh, number. 100 is a number, I know that. 2 times. Fatima says 2 times 50. Very smart. Fatima, brilliant answer. I love these kids. Amazing. Percentage? No. Rupee note. Here is a smart one. That's unbelievable smart people here. Okay, I will give you the answer. 100 is police number. There's one person who says police number. Brilliant answers. So age, Muhammad Shahad has said age. Muhammad Shahad, you're on the right track. Age, 100 age. You're on the right track. He said the right answer. It is 100 years. And many of us, many of you, young kids out there, Many of you will live up to 100 years. That day has arrived. Whether you live good life or bad life, we don't know, but you will live. Many of us are touching 85, 90 years, no problem. You all will live to about 100 years. And that's where the life becomes very, very tricky. So now let's look at the chat window. And here's my third number to you. Here it comes. My favorite number. What is this? 70. 70%. No, Fatma. Number, Shaheen. I know it's a number. Come on, give me a better answer than that. Age, average life expectancy. No, Prachi, we've covered that in 100. Percentage of water. I like it. This guy, Mohammad Sadiq, is brilliant when it comes to answering CBSE exams. Very good. I like it. Age, year, 70 is a number. Retirement. Sindhu Krishnan has got something right. Retirement. I like that, retirement, but it is not retirement. Percentage. Okay, retirement. I'll give you the answer. The answer is you will work for 70 years. You can. 70 productive years of your life, because you're going to live to about 100 years. So 70 years you can work. And I know this for a fact because many of my friends in Bangalore and the rest of the world, they are working till 1995. They don't want to give up because work is worship. We love working. So all of you, my friends out there who are thinking that we will retire by the age of 45 or 50, I don't think you'll retire. We all want to work. And if you're going to live to 100 years, you have 70 productive years in front of you. So remember these three numbers. The first number I said was 10 billion, population of the world by 2050. Second number I told you was 100 years. The life expectancy of many of you in the next few years is 100 years. And the third number I gave you is 70, which is the productive years in front of you. All right. Now let's look at the fourth number coming on your screen chat window now. Difficult one, very difficult for you to crack. Here is the number, 5. 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. If you are going to have 70 productive years, what is 5? Age, senses. Shabana Patel answer is amazing. Senses. Essential living elements. Very nice. Very good. 5 years of education. Fingers. This is such a fun session. I'm having a great time. Manners. I like that. Start going to school. Fingers. All right. We join jobs. Stages of life. Sindhu, you're right. Stages of life. I like that. I like that, stages of life. But I'll give you the answer. Disease. Very good kids. I love these kids. I'll give you the answer. It's a little difficult answer. So remember I told you that there will be 10 billion people. We will live to 100 years and we have 70 productive years. 5 is the number of career changes you can do. I'm not saying job changes. I'm saying career changes. You can start your life with a career in medicine. Then you can become an engineer, you can become a lawyer, you can become a pilot, you can become anything you want. You can become an author, a teacher, you decide. Because I'm on my third career right now. I was an engineer between 1997 to 2001. Then I was in business from 2001 to 2008. Now I'm a confused person. I don't even know what I'm doing. I think I'm an entrepreneur, teacher, or whatever. So I'm on my third career and I still don't know what's my career. So there will be a fourth and fifth. So each of you kids who's thinking that I'll become an IAS officer or this or that, my request is you don't have to be an engineer or an IAS officer for the rest of your life. You can change 5 times, maybe 10 times, because the world is like that. In fact, the 21st century will encourage you to have multiple skills. You can be a pilot and an IAS officer and an engineer and a doctor. Nobody stops you. And this is the world you need to prepare for. So we got the fourth number right, which is 5. And the last one is my favorite, which is very difficult. It's coming on your chat window. Let's look at that number. The number is 3. What is 3, my dear friends? 3. This is difficult. 3. 3 years, Shaheen, no opportunity, no hat trick. Five full of cricket, huh? IPL and hat trick. 3 careers, 3-member family. Very nice. Percentage of water, no. College years, games, odd number. I like it. Very smart kids, study to talk. I like it. Okay, this is difficult, so I'll give you the answer. My bet is that your generation, these young kids out there in front of us, you will have 3 planets to live. The first is Earth, we are living there. There is a very good chance some of you will end up on Mars. And there's a very good chance some of you will end up on Moon. This is happening right now. There are 2 companies. One is I think Jeff Bezos's company. Second is Elon Musk's company. ISRO is doing a mission to Mars in 2027 or 2025 or whatever. And I think many of you in this room can go to Moon or Mars in your lifetime. I may not be able to go, but you can. Imagine my generation, we used to tell our friends and family that I've gone to Silicon Valley, I've gone to London. Your generation will say, I've gone to Moon Valley, I've gone to London on Mars, and I live on 42nd Street in Mars. That day will come. And this is the exciting 21st century. All of you should start thinking about that. World is expanding. Research is expanding, science is expanding, opportunities are expanding. So start expanding your thought processes. Life is not some exam that you have to write an exam, get some 99%. That's not life. That is one tiny part of life. And I encourage you all to think bigger, that in this 21st century world, what do I do with my life? And this is where I talk a lot about that while you should focus on some hard subjects, science, math, history, geography, all that is fine. But you should also focus on soft skills, which is interdisciplinary. And the first thing that I want you to remember is confidence. That without confidence, you will not be able to do anything. And confidence is about a feeling that I can do it. And many of the young children out there feel that either I'm not good enough or somebody is better than me. This exam I can't write, math I don't like, history I don't like. I think that's all wrong. You should have the confidence to do anything you want. So please start developing confidence as a big skill. Our education system and our societies are very harsh on our confidence. We fail and we don't know what to do about it. So please develop these resilience so that your confidence is never impacted. So that is one request. So C for confidence. I'll give you 5 more C's. The second thing is we need to learn how to communicate. And you will all get marks. That's fine. But if you're not able to communicate with somebody else, you will not be able to do anything. And communication is not about writing exams and giving your certificate to someone. Communication is about connecting with each other, regardless of whether you're from one religion or some other religion or some other country. I think you should communicate with each other, but you need confidence to communicate. The third thing is collaboration. I find many children and many parents don't talk to each other. There are language barriers, caste barriers, color barriers, power barriers. All that is fine, but you should collaborate. And without collaboration, you cannot move forward. When you go to a university or you go to a job, you will sit with a person who's from any country, can be from any gender, can be of any color, and you have to learn to collaborate with that person. COVID 19 has devastated us. We don't even meet each other. So we are on Zoom call right now. So this is the new world you need to start collaborating on. And the fourth thing is that you need to be curious. And curiosity is about learning. And all of you should learn not just your books, but the whole world outside you. You should look up in the sky and say, what is out there? Read books about what's out there. Even connect Harry Potter, connect your favorite music and start learning. So, curiosity is very important, and I encourage you to read and watch and see a lot. The fifth is creativity. Make something with your hands, your intelligences, use your senses and your skills. And creativity is about thinking in different directions and making things work. That's very critical. And the last is competence, that you should be able to apply these skills to a career and a competence so that you can live a meaningful life. So I call them the 6 C's. So let me summarize all of them for you: confidence, communication, curiosity, creativity, collaboration, and competence. And if you look at how the world's best leaders are, you'll start seeing these skills in them. And I'll give you an example of an amazing movie you should all watch. I watch a lot of movies. This movie is called Mars. No, Mars. Yeah, Mars. Was it Mars? Which was the movie where Matt Damon is stranded on Mars? Martian. Martian. Very good. Ilan, very nice. Very nice. So, Martian. Very nice movie. And if you have not watched that movie, I think you should watch it. Today, homework for all of you: sit down with your parents and watch Martian. All right? Lovely movie. It shows the story of a guy who's a botanist, and he is on a trip to Mars on a scientific expedition, but by some accident is left behind. And you should see how he survives. He's all alone. He needs to first grow vegetables, so he learns how to grow vegetables. To grow vegetables, he needs to learn how to make water, so he learns how to make water. So he's a botanist, but he learns how to make water with chemistry. Then he has to learn how to communicate with the earth, so he learns coding and he creates that system where they chat with each other. Then he has to apply all his competence and he has to be curious that if I have to find a way to travel back to earth, I need to go to a city that is far away, so he drives all the way and he learns how to do that. And he's creative, but that if he's not creative, he will die. Nobody's out there to help him. So he establishes contact with earth. And the earth people, and there is his team in a space station, they collaborate and plan to bring him back. And he applies all the concepts of science. And he's not a science person, he's a botanist. So he understands plants, but he learns everything else to survive. And I think I find this movie fascinating because what we teach students in school is biology. But you have to learn math and biology and history so that you can solve a problem. And this interdisciplinary approach is what you students should start working on. So please watch this movie called Martian, enjoy it together, see how these skills work together. This is what 21st century will be for. And those of us who are unable to understand the 21st century and not change our minds, I don't think we'll survive this 21st century. It's a very, there are no rules. Social media is everywhere. Laws of communication are changing. Laws of mental wellness are changing. The young generation gets very upset very fast, so we have to help them with that. Social technology and cell phones will be everywhere, so we have to learn that. Financial knowledge will be everywhere, we have to learn that. So learning will never stop. But if you start these thought processes and enjoy, I think this 21st century is full of opportunities. And each of you can make your dreams come true, have a career which is very meaningful. It's a very exciting time for education and humanity. But it's also a very, very scary time because if we don't apply these techniques, we will be left behind. There are so many people who are better than us. There is a theory by Charles Darwin called survival of the fittest. And I think there is no better time of survival of the fittest than today. So this is where I stop talking. We are at 7:25. This is where I encourage you to ask me all kinds of questions. Let's see if we can take your questions one by one. You can chat and I can take your questions, or you can speak, whichever is fine. And I'll give you many more suggestions and ideas as we go along. So, Mr. Mohammed, I am ready for questions. This is where I encourage all of you to ask me questions. What is the mode? Is it the chat window or will they speak?
No, they can raise their hands and the admin will unmute them. Before that, let me ask you some questions for these students, for these participants. See, Rajesh sir, is these skills are born skills or can be made it to anyone?
Okay, very good question. So, Mohammed, I am a person who believes that anybody can learn anything. You don't need to have a God gift or by birth skills. I'll tell you my own problem. I had a severe stammering problem when I was a kid. I had severe self esteem issues because I was very fat. And I was also the youngest in the family, and my family is very accomplished. So, when you are the youngest member, fat and unaccomplished, like your marks are not good, you feel bad, right? And so I came from that, but my parents and my elder brother loved me a lot, so that's why I survived. And I learned how to speak with debating. I pushed myself. I found a way to overcome these skills. I was bad in exams, but I was good in speaking with people. So I became better and better. And so if someone like me can speak and read and connect four things into a conversation, anybody can do anything. Unless there is a, let's say, a physical impairment or a mental impairment, which is a medical condition. All human beings are extremely capable people. God has given us the willpower and the attitude, and we have to choose what we want to do. So, what I encourage everybody to do is feel empowered that if I've come on this planet, then God has a plan. I will not waste my time in moping around what I can't do, and I'll learn and I'll become a better version of myself. And there's a lovely movie, Mohammed, that I encourage you to watch. Besides all the movies I'll keep throwing at you. So today you have to do a lot of homework. And that movie is an animation movie called Ratatouille. It's a beautiful movie, a cartoon movie of a rat, a mouse. The name of the movie is called Ratatouille. And I'll spell it. Oh, there are people chatting and they have spelled it in the chat window.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a story of a mouse, a rat, and the rat wants to cook. And the main message of the movie is anyone can cook. And these movies are made to inspire children that if you believe in something, you can make it happen. And the world will laugh at you that, hey, you are a rat, how can you cook? But if you truly believe that I love cooking and I want to be a cook, I think God will find a way, the universe will conspire and make it happen. But you have to go through a lot of challenges. And we have to be resilient to make those challenges or to overcome those challenges. So watch these movies, Ratatouille, there's lovely movie Kung Fu Panda. I mean, what is Kung Fu Panda? It's a fat panda who wants to do kung fu. And that's what we teach our children that, hey, don't worry about what the world says. If you want to learn kung fu, go ahead and learn kung fu. And I believe we can do anything, but we have to be resilient. We have to be patient because not everybody is going to become a kung fu panda warrior of the valley. And you know, that movie is sometimes it goes in a different direction. So sometimes not everybody gets success. So, what we have to teach our children is try, learn, and avoid thinking success as a criteria for learning. So, we should learn because we want to learn. And not everything can be measured by marks and by trophies and by results. So, does that answer your question, Mohammed?
see how suppose if we are started practice skills into us. So how do we measure it? Can we measure how much we have achieved these skills? Can we measure it?
Many skills can be measured, including communication. There are scientific frameworks that can measure the amount of impact. They may not be very straightforward as compared to measuring the mathematical ability of a person. But now we have good tools and techniques and scientific methods to measure many things. And but I think sometimes measuring is a very short-term focus, and we should avoid measurement as a way to live in our life. For example, this is where the fundamental difference between humanities and science starts. Science believes that everything should be measured and predictable. Humanities felt that not really, not everything needs to be measured. So these two departments started to diverge and they never came together, but they come from one knowledge. So what we should inspire our children is to be comfortable with a life where you can measure something and sometimes you cannot measure it and be comfortable with it. Like for example, how does one measure happiness? How does one measure success in career? Each person has a very different yardstick. So if we always use money as a measure of success, you can measure it. But there are many people in this world who do not have money but are still very happy. And there's this famous story of two men sitting on a beach. The first one is a businessman, very rich from a very rich city called Sao Paulo. And the second one is a fisherman from that village. And they both happen to meet at this beach. They both are sitting and looking at the waves. The businessman is more expensively dressed, and the fisherman is in some shorts, which is what they wear there. So this businessman asks the fisherman that, brother, what do you do? So the fisherman says that I'm a fisherman, so I catch fish. And the businessman says, brother, then what do you do after you catch fish? So the fisherman says that I catch four fish, two fish we consume, two we sell in the market. From that money, I buy bread and butter, and then we have lunch, we rest. In the evening, I go to my friend's place, we all cook, we dance, we party, then we sleep, and the next day, all over again. So this businessman says that no, you should not do that. You should make more fish, work harder, because the more fish you'll get, then you can sell it in the market. That cash can be invested. You can hire people, get boats. So this fisherman is very inspired. He says that, wow, that is amazing. What do I do after that? So the businessman says that I will teach you how to do business. We will create a company for you. We'll buy 20 boats and you'll become a billionaire. And this fisherman says, wow, then what do I do? And this businessman says that then you can have houses, cars, and one day you can relax on the beach. And that's what the fisherman says, that I'm anyway relaxing on the beach. Why do I need to work so hard to relax on the beach? So this is what is a fundamental difference in life, that one person feels that by having a big company, billions of dollars, employees, I'm successful. The other person says that I have one fish to eat, I'm happy with that, I'm successful. So each of us have to measure our own yardsticks. And that's why life is complicated. We cannot teach all our children to come first. We cannot teach all our children to relax and enjoy the waves, because there is each of us have a different way of doing it. So I'm not a very big fan of measuring things. I'm a very big fan of feeling things, that if you feel good, I'm happy with that. If I don't feel good, I'm okay. I'm not fine with that. So I don't want the world to tell me that, Rakesh, you are now making a lot of money, so you must be very successful. I don't believe in that. I think at School of Meaningful Experiences we talk a lot about confidence, and confidence is about this, that I don't want you to tell me how good I am. If I feel I'm good enough, that's a great foundation of education. Okay.
Okay, see, at what age we should start practicing these skills?
So I'll give you a different perspective, and there's a great book all of you should read. All of you who are parents and educators should read Foundations of Education. That why do we teach? Why do we create schools? Why do we have institutions? So according to research, every child has some fundamental intelligences. And there is a book written by Howard Gardner called Multiple Intelligences. Some children are very good at nature. Some children are very good with animals. Some children are very good with numbers and mathematics. Some children are very good with words and literature. Some children are very good in dancing and playing and body and all that stuff. Some children are very good in musical instruments. So, according to the systems from old traditions, we have to create an institution where we expose the child to all kinds of intelligences and then let the child decide what they want to do. And the same child who today is demonstrating extreme high intelligence in body and dance, tomorrow can suddenly stop and become a great musician or a animal lover or a mathematician. So what I think we should look at is that we should not worry about how early we should expose these children, because child has to develop at a certain rate. The brain develops, it takes time. Body develop, it takes time. So the first few years is about a lot of conditioning issues where love is very important. So the first 6-7 years, we should let the children play, develop themselves, then slowly expose one by one to basic things. Right now, there is this amazing controversy about coding skills for 7-year-olds. And each of us have our own views on it. And some people feel that if I teach my children coding and basic scientific skills at the age 7, then they are better prepared when they are 18. According to me, that is not true. And there are multiple researches where even if you have exposed a child one day before the exam, sometimes the children do very well in the exam. So there is no correlation between exposing the children early to success in life. I think what we should do is break these two discussions. That let's create places where a child feels comfortable to learn. And then we help the child to discuss what do you want to do in life. And then expose that child to the reality of the market. That the reality of the market is, ki boss, you need coding, you need humanities, you need marks. If you want to get into a good college, this is the process. So the child has to bridge the gap. But the problem is that we mix future career to present learning. And the children get very stressed out, parents get very stressed out. Many parents think that there is only one thing which is engineering in life, everything else is useless. And that's wrong. And I know many parents want their children to become IAS officers. I mean, I'm okay with all that. Please don't get me wrong. My point is, maybe your child is a very different person. He may not be cut out for engineering or IAS or medical sciences. Maybe he's a good musician. So why don't you focus on creating an environment where the child is confident, learns music and math in the same breath, and becomes a great mathematician who's also a great pianist? Why don't you always think of connected? Why don't you let your children decide for themselves? Why do you have to push everyone into a job? And I'll tell you what's happening in the market. Many of these children are not able to handle the pressure. And I'm a counselor on Mondays. Many of them are breaking down because the competition is huge and not every child can do well in competition. So please remember that you can push children to learn at an early age, but I think pushing will only make them hate the education. Like I was a child who was put in a double standard. So I jumped one standard and I came in class first very early. And I was a very immature child, and it showed throughout my career that I was the youngest, but I was also the most stupid in the class because my mind had not developed. Now, many parents think that it's a great achievement if your child is the youngest in the class. There is not a bigger stupidity than that. It's like pushing your children into disaster. Many parents say that my child is 19 and has finished BCom honors. I think you should be ashamed of yourself when that happens. That you're pushing your children on things that don't really matter. What is more important, your child learning BCom or your child learning to say that I am the youngest BCom graduate holder? Which is important? And we parents sometimes think that this is a rat race and competition, and we have to tell our neighbors how good we are, gold medalist. I think we should stop doing that. And it has a huge problem on children, their personality. They are not able to handle rejection. So we should teach them how to fail. We should teach them how to make mistakes. We should teach them and talk to them about not looking at engineering and IAS as the only focus in life. And the world is very beautiful, and you can always become an IAS officer when you are ready for it. It doesn't have to be at the age 9 or 10.
Okay, the skills developed by you at SOME, is that specially focused on developed by especially focused on the Indian students, or it's a global skill? Curiosity, confidence, specially designed for Indians or globally?
So, your voice was breaking, but I think I understand the question. Since I come from India, all my education has been in India. I understand how important it is to teach these skills from an Indian context. Like there is a child from Kannur, so he understands or she understands Malayalam. And you have to understand that the child thinks in Malayalam, translates that into Malayalam to English, and then speaks. So there is a lot of problems there when you do that. And it causes a big problem in confidence. So my 6 C's are focused for Indian students, but doesn't mean that we are limited only to Indian students. So many of my learners are now students from UK, US. We have a lot of students from Abu Dhabi and Khobar, Saudi Arabia. They are from Indian parents because at the end of the day, all my connections are from India. So that's how it is.
Okay, two more questions. Do you think our current education system provides these skills to our students?
No, it doesn't. That's why I started School of Meaningful Experiences. Our current education system does only one thing: prepare a child to write exams. That's all. And whether that exam is sensible or not, nobody cares. Actually, our education system has become a machine, and it's not that education is wrong. I'm a big fan of education. I'm a big fan of teachers. I'm a big fan of schools and colleges, but I am totally against the way we are doing this, and especially on content. Because my only problem is, I mean, Mohammed, has somebody asked you when the Battle of Plassey happened when you are working? Nobody cares. And that's my problem with education, that let's teach the children how to deal with 21st century. When did Battle of Plassey happen? Who cares? I mean, why is it that you have to memorize Battle of Plassey? And if you can let the child decide what to study, that if the child is extremely interested in Indian history, then Battle of Plassey is a great topic to learn. But if the child is thinking of doing something in a different direction, don't stop that child. So all of us, and this is not Indian education system, worldwide, all education systems are outdated. That part we know. It is a fact. Are we doing anything about it? Yes, we are. There are a lot of innovations happening, but it is slow because the faculty is not trained. It is not easy to change the content. It is not easy to take that to a child. It is not easy to measure the progress. It's a very complex system. So the change will come slowly, and nobody cares about soft skills. Everybody, every parent only will measure on report card. I'm yet to meet one parent who's very happy that my child comes home happy. Nobody cares. Every parent will say, Ki, how much did you get in math and science? And if the child says 22 out of 100, the parents get really worked up that, oh God, our life is wasted. What will you do? You will not be able to write exams. So the parents are very, I mean, They are also scared of the future. We love our children. I get it. I'm a parent too. And we deal with a lot of parents. There is this one hilarious episode I remember. One of my close friends when I was working in Intel, he and I used to travel together because we both were salesmen. We were supposed to go to our company where we used to sell our computers and come back. So we were coming back. It was late in the night. At about 10:30, the flight landed, and we both had to take a taxi. I had to drop him home and then go to my home because his home was first. So 10:30, we go into a taxi. We are very exhausted, and we reach home. And so the car is parked outside my friend's home. My house is a good 20-30 minutes away. So my friend says that Rakesh, come up and have a glass of water and then you go. And I wanted to have water. I once also wanted to go to the restroom. So I go up with him and the door of his house opens and his daughter comes running to him and hugs him. Very natural. And the daughter says, Papa, I got 49 out of 50 in math. And I'm standing right there. The first thing my friend said, what happened to the other one mark? And I'm not kidding you. That small child, her face dropped. And this is what we do. And so this event happened. The next day at lunch, I asked my friend that, why did you do this? And he gave an explanation. He said that I want her to work harder because she's capable, she can do better. So I'm trying to push her. And my philosophy is that if you push her, she'll break down one day. So there are two sides of the coin. Some parents feel that we must push, and some parents like me feel that no, we should nurture. So both of us survive. There is a lovely movie you should all watch called Whiplash. All of you write down this movie's name. Huh? Very important homeworks for all of you. Whiplash. Somebody please type the
Whiplash.
Whiplash. Whiplash. Whiplash. I will type it here. These are great movies you should watch. Whiplash. And I think this is available on Netflix. Whiplash is about a very brutal teacher, jazz musician, who beats his students into perfection because he feels that if you beat them up, they'll do better. Now, some people do very well in that system, but majority of them break down. And that's what our education system has become, that if you start whipping anyone, they will learn how to jump. But I think we should question that, is that the purpose of education? Are we educating or are we training? And my philosophy is we have become a training institute. We are training people to do an exam. We are not educating. These children who write exams, they have no critical thinking. They know how to memorize and write an exam. But when they go into the corporate world, they're not able to think because there is no book in the corporate world which will tell you what to do. So these children fail out there. And the industry comes back to the universities that what garbage is this? And this is my problem
Happening right
with,
now.
yeah, so this is my problem with the education system, that nobody is happy. The industry is unhappy. Parents are unhappy because parents are paying a lot of money for this garbage. Children are unhappy because they are put under pressure cookers to write exams. And the teachers are unhappy because they're not paid. Imagine an industry where everybody is unhappy. What a disaster. And that's why I started School of Meaningful Experiences, because I truly believe education is the only way we can change the world. That's my firm belief. I'm a big believer of knowledge. Whether you are from any caste, community, it is the only way to become a better human being. So I firmly believe in that. And I'm a teacher. I will not stop. Nobody cares about communication. You need to communicate. You need to be confident. So that's why I started School of Meaningful Experiences. And I will not teach math. I will not teach science. I will only teach 6 C's. That's all I do. Nothing else. You want to do coding, you go to somebody else. Don't come to me.
Okay, it's really inspiring, sir, for the educators like us. Your words are really inspiring. See, finally, what are the programs provided by SIM?
So we provide the 6C program to all age groups. 9 to 12, we call it the Young Orators. We are starting a batch this Saturday, and anybody from anywhere can join because it's an online program. Then we have a program for teenagers from 13 to 17. We are starting a batch for that in January. We finished a batch this week. Then we do programs for undergraduate students aged 18 to 21. They are in universities. Then we offer this program to working professionals from 21 to 30 years. And then we also offer this program to senior executives from 31 to 45. So we now cover all the age groups, but our core philosophy is 6Cs. We change it according to the segment we work with, and our science and the concepts and philosophies remain intact. We offer assignments, we give feedback, we offer help on content. Our content is written by me, and I've written books on this subject. And I feel that this is what we do, that we not only understand this subject, but we also write books on this subject. And we only deliver that. So that's what we do.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move to the participants. Students, it's your turn. You can raise your hands and the admin will unmute you. We, Western Ghats Institution for Social Excellence at Wayanad, we have already an agreement with the SOME, the School of Meaningful Experience, for providing these 6Cs into our campus for our students. And admin, you can unmute one by one.
Hi.
Yeah, you can ask.
My question is, can we take gaming as a career in our future?
Yeah. Your name is Ilan, is it?
Yeah.
All right, Ilan. Yes, you can. When I was in Intel, this was in 2000 to 2006. Till 2004, I worked in a department that used to make graphics chipsets. And I met a lot of professional gamers. Now, Ilan, I must also tell you that I met these professional gamers. Some of them are completely into gaming. Some of them are also doing it as a hobby. So I'll give you a simple idea. Sometimes certain things are your hobbies, and you can make your hobbies as your full-time career. But I'll give you a new way of thinking. Each of you are have a skill and a challenge to a skill. If gaming is a concept that you are very skilled at, that means you are brilliant. You can game from morning till evening without getting tired. Then I think this is your calling in life. So please go and pursue. There are good institutes where you can learn how to make a game, where you can be a professional gamer. There are institutes that now look at creating programs where gaming can be used in education. So gaming is a very good concept. It is now more than 30, 40 years old. Sports has always been a professional career for many people. And sports also has connected careers. So there are training institutes for sports, there are psychologists, there are physiologists, there's a medical industry, there is a marketing agency. So I encourage you to take it full time and see if you can choose some subjects that connect you with gaming, and see if you can become an apprentice or do some internships in a gaming company and learn as much as you can. One request I have for everyone is that everything is possible. And as I said, don't think that gaming is the only thing you do. You start your career with gaming, after 5 years, you do something else, then 10 years, you do something totally different. It's a big world for you. So, Ilan, go ahead. I encourage you to start, demonstrate that you're a good gamer, learn gaming, become an expert in that area, and see how this journey goes as we go along. Next question. Who's doing the next question?
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, sir. I just on my video. Okay. Yeah. So, sir, Ragesh, sir. Hi. My name is Amal Basit, and hope you're doing well. Yeah.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Yeah, sir. So, like, so I'm a person who finished my like high school at 2016, and I'm actually doing my flight training right now, pilot training. So, like, this is I have been having a question like for a little bit long, like so I was actually waiting for someone like you to ask this question. So, someone like an entrepreneur or a person who really analyzes the education system of our, especially of our country. So, my question is like, so I finished my high school at 2016, and I have not done a degree, but I was doing some kind of exam improvements and trying to finish my like civil aviation authority exams, theory exams, and all those things. And then right now I'm in US and I'm doing my flight training. So once I started my course, like what I realized is that so my course is like 80-90 percentage have to learn how to think practically, and then maybe 10 to 20-30% we give importance for theory. Theory is actually very important, but the most amount of time we need to really know how to think the whole program in the practical manner.
Yeah.
So yeah, so like, but one thing what I've experienced after starting the course, like something which really makes me down is, and what I've really felt is like the education system what our country is providing us is like it's too much into theory background.
Yeah.
Like the practical sense what the education system of our country gives is too low. Like that's what I felt. I mean, some people say that if you finish degree and do the course, then you would get more practical like practical essence of it. But even though I have many friends and people who have finished degree, even they lack that kind of practical thinking process, you know. So
right. So what's your question? If you can come to the question quickly.
So my question is like, so what do you think that our country can do to like, so do you really think that our country lacks in giving the students the practical kind of knowledge instead of all the time thinking in the theoretical manner? Or like what kind of changes can a country or education system bring to help the students to make them think in the practical manner in their future, in the like when they do any other jobs or any course or any graduation kind of programs or anything like that? Yeah.
Is that your real question, or is your question that did you do the right thing by not doing a degree and doing a professional program? Do you think that's a question as well, Amal? Amal, you there? Okay, you're on mute. So
Amal, you're mute. Please unmute yourself.
Maybe the admin has muted him. All right, so I'll take Amal's question because the admin may have muted him. But Amal, I think there's a hidden question there, and I'll take both the questions. First of all, let's not worry about the overall educational system because it is too complex to change.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir.
Yeah.
My question was not about degree. It is not about degree or whether I should have finished degree or after degree, but the kind of education system what our country was giving, like too much in a theoretical manner. So what changes can our education system do to like inject or input the kind of how to think in a practical manner to the students? That is my question.
Yeah. Great question. So I think we'll stick to that. Thanks for clarifying. Clearly, there is a big gap that we come from a colonial system. The colonial system had roots which were deeper. It was created to produce clerks, and it has a very myopic view, which we are facing even till now. So there is a huge progress, and National Education Policy 2020 is a very good step in the right direction. So I'll explain these macro views and micro views. What is a macro view? That there is a policy level change, and that has begun. That policy level change will take time, years to come to grassroots level. But I also see that in education, there are lots of new innovations that are coming up. They're very tiny, but they exist. What are those tiny innovations? There are many parents who are now saying that I don't want my son, daughter to go through this uh, very theoretical approach. And there are many new universities in India. There is Kriya, there is Plaksha, there is Ashoka, there is many more, Shiv Nadar, Flame, Azim Premji. There is one more called Swarna Bhumi or Vijay Bhumi in Pune. Then there is Swaraj, there is Shulini. There is a new breed of universities coming. And that new breed of universities is saying that we are not going to do this. There's one more in Gujarat called Ahmedabad University. I go and teach there. And these universities are run by extremely forward looking human beings. And they all want to change, and they are. So they're all introducing 4-year degree programs, because a big problem in education is a 3-year degree program. A 3-year degree program is a economical way to get things done. And what does the Indian parent want? That 3 years and then you do a honors program. So in 5 years you get a double degree. So it's an economical way of getting into a job and earning money. But it is a huge problem, because that 3-year program does not help you mature. And many institutions around the world take a 4-year degree program as an undergraduate equivalent. So that's why people do MTech. That's why in India we have everybody doing MCom and MS, because 3 years is not enough. But now all of that is changing. So there's a 4-year degree program which is coming up. In that 4-year, many institutions are saying that the first year is nothing but interdisciplinary education, that everybody will learn everything. And there are practicals, there are projects. But if you look at the 300 million learners in India, these universities take care of only 5,000 people. So the gap is still huge. And these 5,000 actually should be 50 million. That's when the country will change. So I think someone like you and everybody in this room should take this up. We need at least thousands of new colleges and institutions. Whether all of them will survive, I don't know. I don't think so also, because it's a survival of the fittest market. And good faculty is not easy to get. We don't have enough faculty in this world. All the people who want to do good teaching are not connected with the institutions who want to teach. Many of them are doing research that nobody cares to read. So it's a multifaceted problem. But to come to your question, do I see a promise in our country? The answer is yes. Do I see national education policy and all of us trying to do something about it? The answer is yes. Are there challenges? The answer is yes. And the biggest challenge to me is the parents. And so in our own home, the decision maker will say, ki, boss, let's not play around with our career. Let's find a school where I get a degree, I pay money, then you go to some good company, get a job, so that I wash my hands as a father or a mother. And somebody on chat asked me a question, that there was a child who asked a question on gaming. There was a comment that, will parents agree to a child becoming a gamer? And the answer is, it's a good question. Many parents will get the shock of their life when the child says, I want to become a professional gamer, because parents are very worried. And this is what we should do. We should talk about these things, that parents are human beings. I'm a parent. If my son comes to me and says that I want to become a professional gamer, my first reaction is no, because I'm scared. And it comes from my love for my son. But if somebody teaches me that, Rakesh, it's not that bad, it's okay, I'll probably come around, because for me, my son's happiness is more important. So, Amal, we all have to work hard. We all have to demonstrate risk-taking behavior. We all have to role model leadership qualities in education. That if we believe that this system is not working, then we should question it. We should find a way to voice our opinion and constructively solve it. Twitter is not a good place to discuss policies. And so is Instagram. That's a waste of time. So please don't even waste your time putting comments that this education system is bad. Come to the forums where people are talking, and come to places where people want to work with people like you and collaborate so that this can become a better place. All of you can become entrepreneurs in education. You can offer a boutique education which can get somebody a job, and it's a great venture. The problem is it won't be an easy journey because when the river flows, it's very difficult to change the river. So think about these concepts and take small, small steps at a given point of time. Okay, next question.
Next one. Those who want to ask questions, please raise your hand. So raise your hands with the option there. There is an option, raise your hand.
So there are lots of people. I think who's the admin? Mohammed, is that you or somebody else?
Somebody else was admin.
Yeah, so whoever that person is has to quickly give permission because there are 7, 8 of them raising hands.
Hello.
Wait.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Hello, can you hear?
Yes, I can hear. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, you can ask.
Hello, sir. My name is Shaheen.
Okay, please go ahead.
Sir, is that need to say that you have to follow your passion in this 21st century?
So, Shaheen, your question is, should you follow your passion in 21st century? Is that what you're asking, Shaheen?
Yes, sir, because as you said, this world is it's all about learning. I mean, we have a lot of opportunities and multiple areas. You can excel in anything you want.
Yeah.
So why do we want that word that follow your passion, follow what your heart says? Is that needed in your opinion?
Yeah. I get that question a lot and I've done some work on it. I've written a book on it called Plunge. I followed my passion. I left a very high paying job to become a teacher. I mean, teaching does not have money. That part I know for a fact. And, but it's changing gradually, very, very little. So I teach all my students, my conversations that I think you must understand passion first. Passion does not mean that today I want to be, I don't know, a cook and you become a cook. I think there's a journey for that. And my request is that Shaheen, let's say you are passionate about something, you decide whatever that is. Let's say it is cooking or dancing or painting or mathematics, you decide, doesn't matter. But I think you must give yourself at least 5 years to learn how to become better at it. And this is one thing we teachers have to inspire you to do, that results take time and following passion has to be balanced with effort, hard work, sincerity, and resilience. Many students have passions of, and I'll give you a case study because it happened in my friend's home. One of my friends child wanted to be in music and the parents were very supportive, very good kid, loved music, went to a good school to study music, but somehow could not get that kind of a career that the parents and they had expected. And this is something we need to understand, that you cannot compare engineering track where you get a job in Infosys, Cognizant, to a music track. The musical world takes longer time because it is not as organized as an IT sector. So there are no jobs like, wanted an engineer who can come and play the piano and make thousands of rupees. It doesn't happen like that. It's a brutal world. And I know this because my wife is a performer and my wife is a Kathak dancer, internationally acclaimed, but struggles a lot. And she says that if you do not have passion and perseverance, you cannot survive this world of passion. So my request to you, Shaheem, is learn the word called perseverance. Perseverance is 10,000 hours of practice. What is 10,000 hours of practice? Around 5 years of hard work. Roughly, it can be 8, it can be 10. And there are schools where you should pursue your passion. So find out a school where you can learn music. It may be theoretical, but no problem. At least it's better than doing engineering, because you need to follow your passion. Then you need to apprentice with someone. The world's biggest performing artists spent 10 years apprenticing with a great guru. So there's a Guru Shishya Parampara. Be prepared for this. You will not get results at the age of 21, 22 in passion. And there is a brutal movie that you must watch. It's called Inside Llewyn Davis. I'm going to put that name here. It's a little difficult movie to watch, not very interesting, but has a very hard hitting message. Inside Llewyn Davis. This is a story of a jazz singer and 3 days of his life in New York. And to earn money, he has to go to various bars and play the guitar. And it's called a gig, G-I-G. And to get a gig, he needs to know where the gig is. And he has to travel to that place, which sometimes can be few hours, to go there. And he plays the guitar and he may get only $5 out of it. Now, $5, so he has to struggle to survive. And it's a brutal cold winter in New York, but he loves guitar. And that's the thing that keeps him going. That there is cold weather. I have to go 4 hours, hitchhike, sometimes take a ride with strangers because I don't have money to pay for the taxi or the bus. Go to that city, do a gig, $5, and I enjoy it. So you need to have a tremendous mental strength to go through this process. Sports, humanities, history, all these subjects require grit. Science, math has become more predictable. So you do in engineering or some technical education, there is an industry who will absorb you. So the risk is very less. That's why parents are more happy कि यार you don't do singing, dancing, you do engineering. And the classic sentence is that you first do engineering, then you earn money, then you sing and dance all your life. I think that will not happen. So please sacrifice, Shaheen, and all of you who are listening to me, please remember, life is about negotiations. You know, you have to negotiate. Sometimes you have to keep your parents happy and sacrifice your dreams. And sometimes you have to fulfill your dreams by sacrificing something else. So if you have a plan to buy a car, I think you'll have to sacrifice your passion of singing. And if you have a passion of singing, then you have to sacrifice something else. And there's a lovely movie you should watch, Dangal. Have you seen Dangal, that famous movie of Amir Khan with two daughters? It's not easy to push your children towards a sport where only men are there and, make them go through the process. But it takes grit and perseverance. And in that movie, there's a dialogue with Amir Khan. His wife says that, why are you pushing my daughters into this horrible stuff? And Amir Khan says that, give me 2 years. If in 2 years I cannot prove anything, I will kiss my dream goodbye. So Shaheen and everybody negotiate with their parents and say that give me 4 years. In these 4 years, if I don't become the best musician out there, I will do whatever you want. And there is again, I'm a big movie buff. Parents are lovely people there. If my children come to me and hug me and say that, Dad, give me 4 years, I want to do this, I will not say no. I will be heartbroken, but I will not say no. And this is one thing you children should negotiate, that your parents love you, talk to them, listen to them, also share your views with them. And if you think that they are not agreeing to your dreams, then sacrifice your dreams. My father very proudly says that he sacrificed all his dreams to give me a better life. And today also he tells me that, Rakesh, I could have been a great cook, but because of all of you, I decided to sacrifice that, and I decided to be a doctor and a teacher. But when I look at my family and how happy you are, I think my sacrifice is very good. So not every time you should think about passions and be willing to sacrifice. So we should think about passions, But we should also think about the word called compromise. That be willing to negotiate and compromise with your parents, society, yourself, so that you can achieve a sweet spot. Okay, next question. Lovely questions. These guys are asking amazing
Fauzi,
questions.
Fauzi, you can go ahead. Fauzi, are you there? Okay.
If you make me the host, I can manage, Mohammed.
No, I'm unmuting them, but
Okay. All right. So Fauzi is not there,
okay.
is it? You said
Yeah,
Fauzi's name.
okay.
Yes, yes. Sir, can you hear?
Yeah, okay. You can go ahead.
Okay. Sir,
Yeah, yeah.
sir, good evening.
Good evening. Go ahead.
Sir, I have a very simple basic doubt.
Mhm.
Okay, aptitude. Aptitude of a student is innate, no doubt. So at what age of a child we can recognize his aptitude and direct him to his aptitude and attitude?
So there are, I mean, I have read a little bit about this topic. I have seen some researches that say that the foundational years of the child are very critical and the child develops 80% of their aptitudes and attitudes and all that stuff. Some researchers say that that is very limited, so they don't agree with that. I'll tell you a name of a book, Shihabuddin, that you can read. This book is called Educated by Tara Westover. It's a very heartbreaking novel. It's not about education much, but it has nuances that here was a girl who was brought up in a very conservative family. She ran away from home because of certain bad problems at home and had never gone to school. So she started her journey of education at the age of 17 or 18. She never knew how to do proper reading and she never knew anything about math because the culture she came from, it was very different. I think they were from a community of certain sect which does not believe in education in school, so they home teach the children. I forget the name of that sect in America. It's a true story, and this book came out in 2018. So this girl Tara Westover, it's her true story, and she went on to learn at the age of 18, then went on to go to a great college. So I feel that this myth that early age years are the only years where you can increase the aptitude of a child, I somehow don't agree with that. Because I find that human capacities can be increased with certain processes. And I think that these things can be done. Now, the attitude question is more important. I do believe that the behavior of a child is controlled a lot better when they are younger. And this is where the concept of beliefs and values come in. So if our beliefs and values are shaped in the early years, they become stronger foundations, which over time don't change much. That part, I think I more or less have kind of understood that it is possible that if you teach children basic values, culture, uh, things like honesty, ethics, what is right, what is wrong, these foundations strengthen and over time don't change. So if you teach a child to do good or to be honest, these values last longer. And there is a lot of research done on that. There was a famous case study, a very debatable case study called the marshmallow test. What is a marshmallow test? You take children into a room and you record them, and this is there on YouTube. And you can type marshmallow test and you'll find fascinating researches and a lot of debate. This test is very controversial, and I'll tell you why it is controversial. So the marshmallow test says take a box of marshmallows or sweets, keep it on a table, and bring in a child and let the child see the box of sweets. And you tell the child that if you wait for 10 minutes I'll give you 2 sweets. It's a hilarious experiment because children, small children, there's a box of sweets, and you're trying to tell the child to control themselves. So the children come, they look at the sweet. Some children start licking it and putting it back. It's a hilarious experiment, and some children just pop it. So they started calculating that who are the children who pick it up and who are the children who control. And they studied these children over 10 years. And they found out that those children who demonstrate control did very well in life later. Now, very controversial because how do we define what is very well in life is subjective. Where did this sample set come from is subjective. And some very smart professor said that we must also think what time of the day this experiment was done and what was the background of the child. If the child comes from a very impoverished place, then he doesn't care about waiting. He will pick it up and eat it up. And if the child comes from a very rich family, affluent family, they can control because they see sweets every day. So it's a very complex experiment, but I think Shahabuddin, what you asked is connected to this, that we do not know an exact answer, at least I do not know. But I believe that we can change human beings at any age. It is difficult to change human beings at later stage of life. That part is clear because the brains are very difficult to change. The earlier part can be changed, and this is where conditioning becomes very important. Aptitude can be varied. Attitude becomes a little bit more rigid. So that's my answer to your question. And the name of the book I've typed on the chat window, it's called Educated. Next question.
Hello.
Okay, Adil Ahmed. Adil Ahmed, it's your turn.
Hi, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, Adil,
Yeah.
go ahead.
My question is, what's your opinion on studying coding?
So I did computer engineering, Adil. I was the worst engineer of computer in my life. I still am. I don't understand coding at all. So my views are, it is a skill like any other skill. You should learn how to code if you want. You should learn how to do poetry if you want. I am not a very big fan that coding is the answer to all problems in life because I have been in computer engineering. I have been in various companies like Intel, Qualcomm. Coding doesn't solve problems. What solves problem is, according to me, human behavior and how we deal with situations. And coding is a skill, very high regard for that skill. But this debate that children should learn coding because coding is the only thing that will get you a job, I don't agree with them completely. There are many jobs that don't need coding. There are millions of people who don't care about coding. There are few people who do. And we Indians do more because we Indians are highly logical and reasoning oriented. So Chinese and Indians are able to understand these things very well, and they are the markets for entrepreneurs. So these coding discussions that I see on WhatsApp and the world, I think you should decide for yourself. Just because somebody says coding is the way to future, don't accept it. Tomorrow somebody else will come and say guitar is the future. Doesn't mean we all should start guitaring. We all should think ourselves that, do I love guitar? Does it really bother to me? And if the answer is yes, then do guitar. If you as a person are very good at code, you love it, like this story of Bill Gates and coding is very important. Bill Gates, the reason he is such a big billionaire is two reasons. One, he worked very hard. And second, he had the opportunity to do coding at an age where nobody else had access to the mainframe. So he really is a case study of the right place at the right time. But regardless of that, he worked so hard. He would wake up at 2 in the night, walk all the way to the University of Washington, and there was a mainframe, and he would program it from 2 in the night till 6 in the morning. And he would walk back home and sleep. How many children do that? And that's my request to all of you, that please show hard work. And if you can do hard work in coding, you'll become successful. If you do hard work in guitaring, you'll become successful. You have to calibrate your definitions of success. So you asked me a question, Adil. My response is, I personally am not a very big fan of coding. I have two children. My elder son, we asked him, do you want to do coding classes? He said, no way in my life I'll do it. My daughter, do you want to do coding? And she said yes, and she loved it. So each person is different. You decide what's good for you. Next
Okay,
question.
Atif Abdul Rahman. Atif Abdul Rahman. Okay, Fauzi. Yeah,
Can you
Atif is
hear
there.
me?
Atif.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead. Fauzi. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for this opportunity, Amit sir and the team members. And Rakesh sir,
Yeah.
you're really inspiring. It's really an inspiring session. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. And my question is, actually, in every schools and institutions, they need certified teachers. I mean, post graduation, PhD, because they are assessing that certificates. But some people or some teachers are there, very skilled teachers. Those teachers are not getting job actually in each and every situation, each and every institution. My question is, what's your opinion about a certified teacher or skilled teacher? Who is more important? I know that I believe in one, right? So what's your opinion? What you have to say? What do you want to say about this?
So Fauzi madam, I personally don't have any certificates of teaching, though I did a PhD, I've done an MBA. I'm not really a skilled teacher, so I've not gone through BEd. So in our country, a good teacher has to go through BEd, MEd, then there is a NET program, I'm told these days. I've not written any of that. So my attitude towards that is very simple. And I'll explain it using a very simple analogy, because I get the same question from many students who say that, sir, I'm a very good student, but I cannot enter this great institutes, IITs, IIMs. So what do we do? So your question is very similar, that there is a good student, but then there is a process of becoming a teacher. So these are very important parts for us to understand. So there's an analogy I explain, that Fauzi madam and all of you, imagine you're all going to a theme park where there are lots of rides, these roller coasters, and you are a 9-year-old girl, and you go to this theme park because you really want to enjoy all the rides, and there is the most complicated, dangerous ride. But the problem is that to qualify for that ride, you need to be of a certain height and weight, and you are 9 years, so your height is small and your weight is also little less. So the person who's standing there, he'll say that, madam, please stand here, and he'll measure your height and he'll measure your weight, and on both the occasions the numbers don't match the criteria. So he'll say, madam, please grow up, next year you come, no problem. But what does the 9-year-old girl do? She will fight, she will cry, she will say, life is unfair, I am as good as anybody else, this is not good. But this is the reality. So my request to you, Fauzi madam, is there are two institutions. There is this theme park called life. One ride says that only when you are at a certain level, come and apply. Then I'll take you. Then there are many rides where there is no criteria. So you go there. And that's what I have done. That I don't, for me, the classroom is important. My learners are important. It doesn't matter that learner is in a college called IIT or IIM or Wayanad school, Wise school that I will work with. To me, my learner is important. And once that clarity came in my life, I don't care about these qualifications and criteria. So Fauzi man, that's my request to you. If you are expecting a government job, these criteria are very critical. You have to follow. You can express your anger at the system. That is in your hands. But the system will not change. It's a very deep-rooted system. It's also very political. We know that. But if you're a good teacher and if you want to teach, don't depend on the system. Go to any other school where they will take you for your good heart, your capability, and say, please come, we need teachers. And find a space for yourself. So make choices. If you are not qualified for a certain job, but desire to do that job, not gonna happen. So change the expectation and find some other job where you can do whatever.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. It's the time for winding up. It's 8:30 now. So thank you all of the participants, especially those who are making this session wonderful by asking relevant questions. And we at Western Ghats Institutions Social Excellence, we are already had a collaboration with School of Meaningful Experiences by Rakesh Gudwani. So we'll be providing the 6 C's to our students with our courses, along with our courses, +1, +2, and BA Sociology. So our school website address will be there in the chat box, and the admissions are going on. Those who want to take admissions, they can go to the website and fill up the form.
Okay, sir.
So thank you, sir. Rakesh Gudwani, sir. Thank you for a wonderful evening. The light
Thank you,
has
sir.
gone here. Okay. Thank you for the wonderful evening, and you are sharing the same sorts of.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we are winding up the session. Thank you all. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Thank you, sir. Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so
sir.
much indeed.
Bye. Thank you, sir.
Thank